Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all good and well. So time for another album review, and this time I'm reviewing an album by a shoegaze band called Team Tremolo, and this is their release Conjured Light, which came out on the 23rd of February last month. And the album is 10 tracks and it's about 47 minutes in length. In this band you've got 6 band members here, and I've got these names and the instruments they play off the Bandcamp website, so I'm hoping this is all correct. You've got William Erickson on drums, seemingly guitars and keys as well. Then you've got Caleb Drummond on the bass. You've got Jenny Woods on vocals, Zach Roach on guitars, Kristen Chapman on lead guitar, and Joey Lemon on percussion and keys as well on this album. So this album, this album and this band, generally their sound is quite reminiscent of those 90s era alternative rock, perhaps heavier shoegaze kind of bands. The first ones that come to mind when I'm listening to this album were like Hum, Failure. Interestingly, the album was actually mixed by Ken Andrews of Failure as well, so there's kind of a link there. And I can hear a little bit of Garbage, the band Garbage, with some influence, I feel like, in the vocal department of Shirley Manson. Now the album's kind of, yes, it's shoegaze, it's also a little bit grungy, it's got a certain dissonance to it. At times listening to it, I'm trying to pick up on harmonies and finding that a little bit challenging because the tracks are very busy. There's a lot going on. So this album has really taken me a little while to sort of get used to it and start to absorb it. But once you do start to absorb this album, it's actually really quite good. You know, you really start to get into it more. And I thought the songwriting was also pretty on point generally. You know, this obviously shoegaze albums, you know, they tend not to always focus on songwriting, more on sound. But I also thought the songwriting here and the structure of the songs was pretty interesting too. So yeah, some real pluses there. So let's go into some of the tracks on this album, Conjured Light then. So let's start with the first one, which is called Beneath. Gives you a pretty good idea of what's to come. It's, you know, pretty slow song, slightly dissonant, with the kind of slightly drony kind of sounding vocals you get from the singer here. This one is one of the songs on the album where I'm thinking this did require multiple listens for me to get into this one, but it's slowly grown on me. I've gotten into the opening track more and more. I also liked, I think the first track on the album that I really enjoyed on my first couple of listens was the track Fair Use, which is track number 3. I loved the verse part of this song particularly because it has this really kind of good pairing of a really good kind of groovy bass line with some twangy lead guitar notes, and I thought those two just came together nicely in that track. And then the vocal performance I also enjoyed on Fair Use as well. So everything kind of came together for me on that track on my first early listens, and it still is one of my favourite tracks on the album as well, I'd say, at this point, having listened to the album now several times. I also liked Survive, but again, this was one of the tracks that was a little bit more challenging to get into. Very, very busy. It kind of lures you in with its trippy mix of those guitar tones and the distortion and you know, the percussion and stuff. It's all kind of happening very quickly. I also liked I think the track on the album that I thought, you know, this sounds like single material. It sounds like it could be released as a single, was the song Shudder, which is the 6th track on the album. You know, this was a track where this song got stuck in my head quite quickly, and I thought this is one I think this has got a lot of replay value. So Shudder for me, another favourite track up there with Fair Use that I really have enjoyed listening to on my repeat listens as well. Definitely a single, potential to be a single, that song, if it hasn't been released as a single already. The Sleeper is the 7th track. This is a bit slower, but it's another really good one with the vocalist here. As I was listening to her, I've mentioned Garbage and Shirley Manson already, but on this song, she actually reminds me a bit of Keris Matthews with her vocal delivery, who was in the band, you know, Catatonia, but Catatonia with a C, not a K, which is a band I talk about a lot on this channel, Catatonia with a K. This is Catatonia with a C, the pop group of the 90s. And I got just kind of like, I kept thinking of Keris Matthews when in this song for some reason. I just reminded of her a bit. The other track I really liked on here that I'm going to mention is Take Me Under, the last 10-minute track, which I thought ended the album appropriately. I liked the build up at the start. You know, this song allowed some build up to begin with. Even some heavy guitar chords that just made me think of doom metal and stoner rock bands. And it was a pretty good way to finish off this album. So what am I going to score this album? Well, I think that, you know, all things considered, it's a, you know, it's kind of packed with a lot of stuff, this album, which you wouldn't necessarily notice at first. And, you know, it's very busy. It's not super easy to get into. But I think that it's, you know, some really good material on here with a few really standout tracks. So I'm somewhere between a 7 and an 8 out of 10. So I think I'm going to give this album a 7.5 out of 10. Definitely recommend this for fans of this style. Now, if you like heavy shoegaze, alternative rock, kind of sounds a little bit like the 90s, then I think you're going to enjoy this, and you probably enjoy, you know, the production of the album as well, which is, you know, despite the kind of dissonance, it's got a good production to it as well, I think. So yeah, that's where I'm at with this album. I think it's a grower. It's a grower, this one for me, but with, as I say, some standout stuff in here too. So go check out this album then. I will drop a link to the Bandcamp page where you can download this one too, if that's if you know, like the sound of it and you want to check it out. Otherwise, from me, take care everybody, and bye for now.